You're listening to the B&H Photography Podcast. For over 40 years, B&H has been the professional source for photography, video, audio, and more. For your favorite gear, news, and reviews, visit us at bnh.com or download the B&H app to your iPhone or Android device. Now here's your host, Alan Weitz.
Greetings and welcome to the B&H Photography Podcast. Erik Johansson is a visual artist from Sweden, and we are speaking with him today by Skype from his home in Prague. Erik is a photographer, but not in the traditional sense. When describing his playful, surrealistic imagery, the terms visual artist and photo illustrator readily come to mind. Yes, he's a photographer, but the way he goes about creating his imagery, the distances he travels to capture the visual elements of each finished photograph, and the time and effort behind the post-capture part of the process is staggering. But we're talking semantics. His photo-based images are beautiful. They express idea, as he says. His goal is to make images that look believable despite the fact you know what you're looking at simply does not exist, and that's a major part of their appeal. In addition to his personal work, Erik also creates commercial images for clients that include Toyota, Volvo, and Heineken. He's also the author of two books, 2016's Imagine and the soon-to-be-released Places Beyond. Welcome to our show.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's a pleasure.
Nice to be on the show.
Before we start, if you're listening at home or at the office, you might want to go to Erik's website, his Instagram pages, or the show notes for today's episode, so you can follow along as we talk about some of his complex imagery. It's erikjo.com, erikjo, and on Instagram, it's at erik.joh. And there you have it. I want to start by establishing for our listeners that your photographs are all created in camera. Lightroom and Photoshop aside, no portions of your photographs are computer generated. You shoot each of the elements and piece them together after the fact. So my question is, what comes first, the idea or the various visual elements of the final image that somehow or magically come together as a final photograph? Where do you start?
Yeah, I mean, it always starts with the idea, I would say, or at least 90% of the time. It starts with thinking about a small combination between two regular things, but in an unexpected way. And that's usually how the idea starts to come to life. And then I keep asking myself, what do I want to say with it? How can I make it look more interesting? So it's a very long process from the initial idea to the final image. And but that is right, that everything, the camera is my tool to create these images, but I use it in a way that I combine many different photographs in order to create these scenes that I have in my photos. It means a lot of practical effects and a lot of building props and material and stuff like that, and just to get as close to reality as possible, although one photograph can consist of hundreds of different elements sometimes.
Is it safe to assume that quite often what you start with and what you end up with are two different photographs or illustrations, however you want to describe it?
Yeah, I guess what the idea requires is somehow my job to provide, I guess, in a way that sometimes it can be just one or two elements that needs to be combined in a very seamless, good way. But sometimes it can be several different elements from a variation of a lot of different places that needs to come together. So it all depends on the idea, how complex the composition or like the different parts and the puzzle becomes.
And do you work, by yourself? Are you kind of like holed up? You're around with computers and photos saying, okay, just leave me alone. I don't exist in this world right now, and just work? Or are you working with other people for input? Do you share your ideas as they go along? What's your work process in that sense?
Yeah, I do work a lot alone. I come up with all the ideas myself. I shoot everything myself, and I put it all together myself. But I do have people that I work with for building props, for example, or assistants, or sometimes finding locations and stuff like that. So everything around it, I have some people I work with here locally, usually. But I think it's like to be part of the entire process from idea to final image. To me, it would be something that would be quite hard for me to give away, because I think it's the creativity is existing in all the different steps, and I need to be part of all of that in order to create the result that I'm looking for.
Does this creative process change at all when you're working commercial? Because according to your notes that I saw on your site, you only do about 6 to 8 I'm calling photographs or photo illustrations per year, because they're very labor intensive, and you got a lot of traveling, and again, there's a lot of post that goes on here. When you're hired to take an Erik Johansson photograph for a major client, there's time restraints on there. How does that change your workflow? Do you work with more people? Are you open to more thoughts? Who plants the seed for these? What does it vary?
Yeah, it is a little bit different because clients usually contact me based on my personal work. That they've seen something that I've done previously and they want me to do something similar for them. But the commission work is always, of course, there's different time frame. You had the deadline, which I don't have on the personal work. So that's why I allow it to take time. But it's more about, usually we try to reduce the time by just making it more controlled. That, for example, maybe we shoot more of the parts in studio. We build more of the set. We have more people working on it and everything. So usually with the client work, I have to finish it within a month from the day that we get it approved until the final image. So, but it's possible to do it this way as well. It's just that the process is a bit different. And what I like with the personal work is that I allow it to take time. And I think it's quite often a good thing to let things take time.
Is there also something good about the challenge of saying, okay, I only have 4 weeks to do this? Does that sort of, it's a different dynamic, but does that also, if anything, give you fuel to burn?
No, definitely. I think the commission work, although the personal work is very creative and free, I think it's really fun to do the commission work as well, because then you're also working as a team. You're trying to achieve an idea or put a vision to life in a different way together with other people. So it is a bit different process, and there's more people who have opinions in a way, but I like that challenge as well. So.
Regarding the aspect of the time that you take when you're doing a personal project, can you talk a little bit about what that time adds to the project? Would it be more time to contemplate, or more time to perfect, maybe in post-production or even in pre-production, in the construction of what does the time element add that, kind of in counter to what Alan said, that the rush of a commercial job might add?
Yeah. No, I think mainly I would say that the planning is where I try to spend the most time. And because planning it well, it makes the photography part of it a lot easier. And if I shoot everything well and have good material, putting it together is a lot easier as well. So just by letting it take time and trying to plan it really well, I think that's mainly what saves time in the end and makes the result better looking.
Is that what do you do that aspect of it? Do you do your own production in terms of scouting and all the little details?
Yeah, normally. It's quite with the personal work, it's pretty down to earth somehow. I usually go out myself, I check, and I bring assistants, maybe friends sometimes. It depends, but I try to keep it very simple when it comes to the production side of my own projects. But of course, sometimes I just don't know if I'm done with an image, so it can also be that I let it take time and just leave an image because I don't really know when I'm done with it, and I have to just leave it for a couple of weeks, come back to it, change some things maybe. So,
so you do that. Can you think of any examples? In some of the images we've seen where a major change might have come from just time and reflection and adding something or taking something away?
I guess it's. Let me think in my head which images
put you on the spot,
I've done, but.
Yeah, actually, he does. He wants to put you on the spot. No,
no, but I think just for example, the full moon service. This image with these people putting up moons in the sky, like a service team somehow. I wasn't really sure about. I kind of had the idea in my mind what I wanted it to look like, but I didn't know exactly what I wanted it to look like. So I had some thoughts maybe the sky should be a little bit different, or this should be a bit brighter. So there was a lot of things like this. The image was basically ready, but for half a year I just left it, came back to it, changed some small things, left it for a while again. And I think the way I know that I'm done with something is just that I bring up the image after a couple of weeks not looking at it, and I can't really see anything I want to change anymore. So that's somehow when I feel like, okay, that's when I'm done. Yeah.
And in terms of maybe the opposite end of the process, when you're just beginning, when you have an idea, can you talk a little bit about maybe the mental process that you go through when you say, hey, that's a great idea, but I'm just not so sure I can create something like that. And maybe an example where you gave up on something because you just knew it was too complicated, or the opposite where you pushed through and figured it out?
Yeah, ideas, they somehow come all the time, I guess, in a way, but usually in a simple way. There can be small combinations of something that I find interesting, and as soon as something comes up, I just try to sketch it down, and eventually that might develop into an idea. But many times, of course, I don't really know how could I do this or how could I do this. So that's why I have a lot of ideas all the time in my mind, and finding the right location or it's a lot about problem solving, the planning stage of it. It's like, how can I break this down into smaller problems and solve it somehow? And since I wanted to look realistic as much as possible, and that's, the definition of photography is, of course, it's some kind of, image of reality, I guess. But by combining a lot of different photographs, it's important to keep that consistency and make it look as if it's a photograph, even if it contains so many elements. So that's also part of the problem-solving part of it, which also has to go into the planning. Do you normally start with location? Is that the first thing you look for when you're solving problems? I think so, somehow. Like it's and sometimes it can be, I already think of a place that I know, but sometimes I have no idea, and I just have to keep it with me in the back of my head somehow until I find that place. And sometimes that can take years.
To go back even one step further, your background is essentially drawing and painting. Is that correct?
I always liked painting and drawing. I always had a big interest for computers, I guess. But I actually studied computer engineering. So it was more of I have an engineering background. And I think that's, although I don't really use any of those skills in my work, I think it's still the way of thinking, maybe, in a way, the problem-solving approach.
It definitely has. And I watched the video of you constructing some of your photographs. It's definitely engineering going on in there. Maybe not in the sense that you were trained in it or what your ultimate goal was, but there's definitely engineering, I would say, for sure. Do you ever sketch out things before you actually go, or is it just basically you have little bits and pieces that you just say, okay, this looks like the beginning of something good. Where am I going to go with this?
No, I guess I'm pretty much perfectionist and really want it to be perfect. So it can be, usually I go to the location, take some test shots, maybe do like a rough, maybe first, it starts with a sketch, and then I go and shoot the location test shoot. And then maybe I draw a bit in Photoshop just to see like where I want the different objects to be placed. And eventually I will just decide like when and where I should shoot it, or like if this is a good location or if I have to rescout it. And so like the planning is really what takes the most time, definitely. Shooting can take like a day, and efficiently the retouching part is maybe like a week. It's just that I let it take more time. So. Do you,
when you're shooting actually, do you do a lot of takes and redo it? Are you kind of a perfectionist on the shooting aspect of it, or do you feel like once you have the location and the right elements, the photograph maybe is secondary and you can work out any problems later?
Well, I think somehow I kind of like, I shoot almost everything outside in the field, or like that's my studio basically. And what I like is somehow to plan the projects as much as I can. But then, of course, weather you can never really plan. And I like the fact that adds some kind of randomness to the image. So like sometimes maybe you're thinking it should be like cloudy day, and then the sun just comes out a little bit and it just gives something unexpected that gives me something to play with. So I kind of like that. But of course it happens sometimes. If it starts raining or something, I just have to go back and reshoot it. It can happen sometimes. But for most times, I think it's even interesting to not to just leave something for,
that's interesting.
I would imagine that you also have a lot of variations in the weather effects in your photographs as you're photographing them piecemeal. And light is constantly changing, like you mentioned. And do you ever come into a point where you have all the elements, but they don't quite match? Or are you basically making them match through Photoshop and you're retouching?
No, I usually don't. You can't. There's basically two things that are really important for matching the different parts, and that would be the perspective and the light. So that the perspective is as close to, in all the different elements, that it's close to what it should be, like, in terms of the horizon height and the focal length and everything. Right. But also the light, the type of light and the direction of light should be the same. And I think if this is already matching well, then it's a lot easier to combine it. And I can't really do magic with Photoshop. So like I need good material to start with. So of course, if I don't have that, then I have to go back and reshoot parts of it. But for most times, because I plan it more and more these days, I kind of know, I'm quite confident already when I go out and shoot that it will probably work out. Yeah.
Do you prefer going to locations that you're familiar with? Because from what I'm gathering, you head back up to where you grew up in northern European landscapes. Do you ever go anywhere where you've never been? Just say, I'm just going to be open to whatever comes at me and let's just see what happens?
Sometimes I try. I mean, I like going on photo trips, like to also like Northern Europe, like Iceland or the British Islands or anywhere like a bit cold and rough somehow. But for most parts, I think I need the idea first, usually, to know what I'm looking for.
And do you give yourself any rules, let's say, or any, I guess, parameters that you won't break? Let's say, for example, you could fix something in post, but you know what, you really, you need that light and that perspective that you were talking about, and so therefore you're just not going to do it, even if you could do it.
I guess it's like, I mean, I want it to look as realistic as possible. So how can I get to there? That's of course different ways to get there somehow. But I think to capture as much as possible in camera would automatically make it look realistic. So that's what I'm trying to do as much as I can. And these days I'm trying more and more to build props and bring more and more things out on location and already capture as much as I can in camera.
Have you had to do reshoots?
But yeah, I mean, it happens sometimes. And I think it's... I mean, something that I try to do also is that I mean, all these different images are different worlds in a way. But in order to create some kind of consistency, I try to shoot similar environments. Like a lot of the images are actually taking place just within 20 minutes driving distance from my parents' place where I grew up. Right. And it's just a way for me to kind of bring it all into like a similar world, although each image somehow tells its own story and has its own rules in a way also.
Wonderful. And you'd mentioned Photoshop. We're talking about Photoshop. That's your primary tool in terms of your post process?
Yes. Yeah. So Photoshop is essentially the only tool I use. I use SketchUp sometimes for just using it in the early stages of kept trying to figure out, like maybe build the scene in 3D just to have like a sense of where I want to be in relation to the different objects. But there's no 3D or illustrated elements in the final images. But it's more like an aid or like a guide for me.
And have you found any instances where the Photoshop tools just weren't enough for what you wanted to do?
I mean, there's limitations, I guess. But I mean, the Photoshop part of it is just, I don't use super advanced techniques, I would say. It's more about putting the puzzle together, basically. Yeah. It's like already having the different parts that I need and then just using masks and adjustment layers to blend those different images the best way possible. So it's more like just I mean, if I would use it, I could do it by hand by like paper and scissors basically, and that's how it's like creating a montage.
Yeah.
How many in your average photograph? I don't know if this is easy to answer. How many separate elements would there be in your average photo illustration, your finished product?
Yeah, I mean, it's usually I would say a few hundred layers usually, counting like adjustment layers and like all different parts and everything. So it's still like a lot of different elements. And I try to always work in a non-destructive way in order to, maybe I do want to change the sky a bit in the end or something like that. And try to build it up in a logical way as well, to like keep the sky in the background and then build the image up all the way to the front. So the files become fairly heavy sometimes, but it's, that's the price you have to pay for being able to be flexible with moving things around.
And can you tell us a little bit about your setup, your post, your computer that you use, your drive, any kind of what you use to kind of keep things moving fast? Yeah,
so I mean, I have this PC workstation computer that I built myself essentially just by looking at. I mean, it's not like I didn't make the components. I bought the components and put it together based on like what is optimal for Photoshop basically. And I'm sitting on like two big monitors. I have like one big monitor that I have all like basically the Photoshop canvas, and then I have a secondary monitor for all the tools and all the different panels.
Just curious, what
that's basically my setup.
I'm sorry. What brand monitors are you using? Because I know your stuff is pretty precise.
Yeah, I'm using an ASO. This is a CG 318, I think, 4K, 30-inch maybe, or 31-inch. And then I have a secondary monitor, like an older ASO monitor, 22-inch, that I have like rotated 90 degrees. So essentially to have as much space as possible for the layer panel, so I can see as many layers as possible.
Right, right.
And that's pretty much my.
What about your mouse?
Setup.
I'm curious. Do you use mouse or a drawing pad, or how do you?
Yeah, I have a Wacom board, like a large one. But I have to say that at least half of the time, or maybe even more, I still use the mouse. I think I'm just used to like gaming, and maybe when I was younger or something. It's just convenient for me with a mouse. But of course, there's a lot of cases where it's a lot better with a pen, where you need pressure sensitivity and stuff like that.
What kind of connection to gaming do you see in what you're doing now? Do you find that the world you knew as a gamer kind of come out in some of the images you make?
I think it's. I think I used to be. It has been inspiring to me, I think, through life to play a lot of computer games, because you go into these like different worlds, and that's basically similar what I want to do. I create these worlds, but I capture them in just one single frame. So I don't really have time so much for gaming these days, but I can really enjoy doing it if I would.
Well, it sure seems
I don't know. We all have the same
something.
time, so I could have time for it. I just don't prioritize it, I guess.
Well, you're making your own games. That's better. So I'm assuming that everyone in Sweden gets handed a Hasselblad camera when they're born. Is that how it works?
Yeah. When you're born,
okay.
And I keep people.
So how'd you pick Hasselblad?
In the beginning, when many years ago, or I don't know, 10 years ago, I guess, when I started doing this on a little bit more serious level, I also helped some other photographers with photoshopping or retouching their files. And first time I saw these like Hasselblad files, there was like something completely different to work on. Just the amount of information in the raw files and the crispiness of the images. I really liked that, and I knew one day I had to have a medium format camera. And I was trying out both Phase 1 and Hasselblad, but in the end I just liked the Hasselblad system more. I liked the zoom lens, the 3590, and the ergonomics and the whole integration of everything, and also just a look of the files somehow. So it's like a just gut feeling, I guess, in a way. So
what other, did you try any other systems prior, or did you work with systems that, whether they were medium format or 35?
Yeah. Before I had the Hasselblad, I had a Canon EOS 5D Mark II, and I tried while choosing what medium format system I would use. I was shooting a bit with Phase 1 as well, which is of course not a bad camera. It's a great camera as well. I just in the end liked the look of the files. I guess that was the main difference to me.
And you've always been digital. It sounds like you've never been film. You skipped that whole process.
I mean, I've been shooting, and I still shoot sometimes film just for fun. But I basically discovered Photoshop and photography at the same time, and it was always very natural for me that it's digital, I guess.
And it makes more sense for the kind of work that you're doing. It's one less step to have to first convert from the negatives to digital. Yeah. And plus, for what you're doing, you have so much more room to play around with as far as wiggle room for adjustments and tonality and everything else. So it makes sense.
You mentioned that a lot of your work is outdoors, but you do use artificial lights. Some of your images, and we watched a little video that you made where you removed the lights that were actually in the image. Can you talk a little bit about using interior lights and blending light?
Yeah, I think it's really. The most important to me with light is that light should have a purpose, not just to throw like a softbox in there or something just to give something like an interesting light, but that the light is coming from somewhere that somehow makes sense. So that's something I already try to think about in the sketching or planning phase, that like, okay, so where do I want the light to come from? Okay, it's there, and what can I do to create something more, like create a balance or some kind of dynamic in the image as well? Okay, there can be some light coming from there, but there should be a light source then. Shooting outside, I try to build the light pretty simple, I think. It's like, in reality, we have one light source. We have the sun, and that's it. So other than that, we just have artificial light sources. So I try to build it in a simple way, and I mostly use umbrellas for light modifiers, or the telezoom reflector from ProPhoto, which can throw light over great distances and still create like something sunlight looking light, which I think is really nice.
Wonderful. I have a quick question about your final products, because now you have a couple of books out, and I imagine you sell prints. But do you, what do you think of as the final product? Is it something that's on a monitor or a page? And how do you look at the image when it's on a page compared to a monitor?
No, but I definitely find the final product to be a big print, I would say. So
how big?
I usually, the biggest ones I do are 180 times 135 centimeters. So I guess that's like 70 inch maybe wide, I guess.
Yeah.
It's Because I just find it like the texture of the paper and the amount of details that you can see on the big prints. That's where you really see, I think, the difference with the image quality as well. And I also think that a print is something that it doesn't even have to be big, but the print is a physical representation of something that the artist chose the paper because the artist think that this represents it the best way possible. And when you see something digitally, you don't really have control of how the viewer or like what device they are looking at it from, and like what is the color management of that device and everything. So that's why I think a print is always the final product.
Plus, the power never goes out on a print. It's always
exactly
there.
Yeah.
Well, have you had some images that you felt they worked on the monitor, and then when you saw them in print, they weren't working, and maybe you abandoned that image, or what kind of tweaking did you need to do to get it to where you wanted?
Yeah, I guess I learned by trying a lot here, and I think especially the darker images are pretty tricky to print on. I print on several different papers, but there's a matte paper that I really like, and dark images on matte paper can be pretty tricky. So, I've been experimenting a lot and found adjustments that I have to do to the images to make them come out the best way possible on that paper as well. So that means that the files that I sent for print on a matte paper looks quite different from the ones on my website, for example.
Yeah.
Do you do your own printing, or do you send out for prints?
No, there's a place in Stockholm that does my printing that I've been working with for a long time. But I guess I could do it myself, but it's just it feels like I would just add another problem to myself, or more things to manage somehow.
Yeah, you need more to do along in the process.
Yeah, I like to. Yeah, exactly. That's not what I need. And I know, my small printer here, that I have just for printing out, I don't know, invoices and stuff. It's bad as it is, so I can only imagine with a big printer what kind of problems I could have.
How large are your invoices? I'm just joking.
So let me ask you this quick question here. You have a pretty large Instagram following. You have sponsorship from Hasselblad, exhibitions. Your work's received all over the world. That said, how often do people come up to you and dismiss the work as just saying, "Oh, it's just Photoshop"? And if that does happen, how do you react?
Usually I don't meet these people, but I guess people don't usually say it to my face somehow, I guess. But, of course, I'm sure there's people that thinks that. But I've always been open with it, this is not, I don't simply, that's the tricky thing. There's not really a word exactly for what it is I do, I guess.
Do you call yourself a photographer?
Usually if someone asks what I do, I say I'm a photographer, but I'm not a photographer in the traditional way. Right. But still, it's combinations of photographs. So,
but there's a long history of photos, that, manipulated images going back. So
there's nothing new about that. As soon as you're burning and dodging and manipulating, just for whatever it's worth. I look at your work and I just think photo illustration. That's the kind of title that I put onto it, because again, it is composite and it's definitely photography. There's no two ways about it.
And do you just when you're out and about in the streets, do you shoot straight photography too, or do you just can't even be bothered?
I'm actually not so good at this kind of stuff. I need to plan really well and to shoot something like a wedding or events or anything where you need to really be capturing the moment. I think usually I'm too slow for that. So it's tricky, yeah. But I like to, I take pictures sometimes. I bring camera with me sometimes when I just take a walk as well. But it's very different, yeah.
You do use your camera. It's part of the process. It's not what you do. It's the element, it's the item that you use to capture the different pieces that go into your final product. So we could play with that name all day long.
Yeah, definitely. I don't really mind any titles. If someone it sounds like a good title, actually.
All right, we're going to take a short break, and we're going to come back and talk more about photo illustration with Erik Johansson. Stay tuned.
We hope you're enjoying this edition of the B&H Photography Podcast. The best way to support the show is by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. For links to gear and more information on today's guests, check out the show notes in your podcast app or visit our homepage on the B&H Explorer website and join the B&H Photography Podcast Facebook group. And now, back to the show.
Okay, we are back. Erik, let's talk a little bit about some of your specific images. We pulled a few of them out here. There's one picture, it's called Above All, and it's a woman shopping in the forest. She's coming up an escalator.
Yes.
Tell us about that picture.
Yeah, the idea was somehow to create a place that feels like, I mean, this double meaning with above all, like both that it's what is most important, but at the same time also like the last level maybe somehow. And I wanted to create something where it feels like someone that's lost in a way, or like just a contrast between the consumption society and coming out in nature and kind of like this clash between the natural and the artificial, the created materialistic stuff. Almost with the trees, kind of like almost like pillars holding up the world around it, and this very like pure, clean kind of look of the forest in the background.
Is it important to keep? I mean, a lot of your images, there's a little darkness in there. You know, there's a little. It's not simply an elephant floating away on a balloon or something like that. You know, and is that always important to kind of keep these mixed themes in the work?
Yeah, I mean, it's a balance between, I guess, sadness and humor and many things. Like, I think the topics can be sad sometimes, but it's still like with a hopefulness in it.
You could make these pictures whatever you want them to be. That's the way I get them. I mean, it depends who the viewer is and where they are in their life. But I mean, watching this scene of this woman just casually coming up from an escalator from under the ground in the middle of a forest, and there's light. Apparently, there's a whole world under there. And it just caught me. I just realized that when we were looking at these pictures, we were looking at it in color, and I printed them out, and we're looking at black and white. And what's interesting is that each of your images are equally strong in monochrome. They're magical in color, but some pictures don't hold up as well. Your pictures do, even as monochromatic images.
Thank you. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, sometimes I feel like, should this be black and white? But I always feel like I'm leaving out then. Color can also be a way to tell the story, like another layer to it somehow. So that's why I always want to somehow bring color into it as well. And but like you say, it's really about, I like to put a title on the image, of course, and that's somehow like a clue what it is that I thought about the image. But I think it's also equally important to not over-explain it and let people make up their own mind or story around it as well. So.
And in that image, for example, I assume you went to a forest. Where did you shoot the escalator?
Yeah, so I was looking for a long time for an escalator with these kind of like light rails on it. I knew I had seen it somewhere, but I didn't remember where. So, but at some point I just realized that it was somewhere in Berlin, and I started looking on Google Street View, and eventually I found this place. So I went there to shoot the escalator. I think that was the first part of it.
You went all the way to Berlin just for the escalator?
Yeah, it's kind of like I go to Berlin all the time. Okay. Actually, it's close by. It's like about 3-4 hours drive from here. Right. And I used to live in Berlin as well before. So I shot the escalator, and I knew it would be a nice, like, I wanted these light rails because I thought it would be a nice, like, focal point, or like where the light is coming from in the scene, coming back to this, that the light should have a purpose. So that's basically what's spilling the light on the environment around it. Right. And it also helps to bring the whole scene together. So then I shot the forest. So I went out in some forest close to my parents' place. I knew this like very interesting forest with these tall pine trees, and I basically set up a flash there with a white umbrella with a warm gel in it, and I like shot up through the umbrella to kind of like shoot light basically on the surrounding on the ground as well as hitting some of the trees. And then I shot the girl also with at a different location, but in a similar surface.
So the model was a third location. Okay.
Yeah, but she was standing on a similar, like out in a forest, but it was just not that she was in Prague and this location was in Sweden, so it was not practical.
I told you, John. I told you. I said that she's in Prague, and he didn't. I knew it. I was able to pick that one out. Okay.
Yeah. It's that Prague light.
So it's that Prague light.
Yeah. Right. Well, that actually leads me maybe to our next one, which it's called Just Visiting, and you have there's an older woman in the window. I believe she's an older woman. Can you talk a little bit about working with models and the actors that you hire? Are they people you know? Do you go to agencies? Do you give them a lot of instruction? How's things like that?
For the models, it's usually actually people for the personal projects, it's quite often people that I somehow know or have some kind of. It can be acquaintances or someone that I know about, because I want the people to be normally just normal people. And when I think about an idea, I usually think of someone that I know somehow. So I try to convince them that they should be in it. But I want them to act natural also. So it's like, that's also why I try to build more and more props these days, because it makes it easier to explain like the scenario, you know, that you have something to interact with, and they don't have to think so much about posing or anything, but just explain the strange world that they live in, and that's what they are doing, like picking down stars from the sky or something like that, or like putting up moons. And then it's more like I'm trying to shoot the scenario as it's happening, so the models are interacting with the things, and I'm just shooting them as they are casually interacting with it.
Was the smoke in that image actual smoke, or did you create that?
That smoke was, yeah, it's actual smoke, but I shot it at a different time. I made some like fire in a barrel, and then I covered it and opened it to kind of create smoke, and I shot it with like a light from I think from the side and from behind. So there's a few things that I actually have like an archive of, and that's like smoke, trees, some skies and stuff like that I can use for projects, and smoke is one of those.
And is that a real house or is that a model? Because I can't assume anything is real here.
No, it's actually a real house. It's a lot of Swedish houses look like this, I guess, and so it's a small house. It's not really a house that you would live in. It's more like a storage house or something.
Yeah.
And then I shot this like piles of rocks when they were doing like construction work in Prague, and I shot this old town square in the middle of Prague as well, in the early morning when there were as little people as possible.
Wonderful.
And to me, this is like kind of, it's called just visiting, and I guess it somehow represents me being in Prague with the Swedish house plowing through the old town square and making it feel like maybe I'm just visiting. I don't know.
How come, just to change subjects briefly, why Prague? Why are you living in Prague?
I met a girl from here, and that's what took me here.
That's always a good reason.
That's a good reason.
Yeah,
it's a good reason. But I really like Prague. It's a really nice place, and there's a lot of film production here. So it's also a lot of good people that can build things and studios and stuff like that. So it's very helpful actually for these kind of projects.
Sure. So speaking of, I guess, well, houses, and I'm not sure this is Prague, but there's the image you call self-supporting, and you have these houses in between the rock. Can you talk a little bit about that, especially the houses?
Yes. So, yeah, this was, I got this idea from just one day talking to an architect friend of mine, and we were talking about this, what do you call it? Like the arch? Is it arch or arc? What do you call it?
An arch, yeah.
An arch, yes. So this construction that you have this very stable, simple construction, basically all these pieces just supporting each other. And if you remove one, it will all fall apart. But if you just leave it as it is, it will just support itself for like thousands of years. And I thought it was like an interesting starting point for an image. And I was thinking about creating some kind of society where we all kind of need each other and we support each other. But if we remove one part, it all kind of falls apart. So that was the initial thought for this idea. And I had this in mind also for a long time, and then I went to the north of Czech Republic to an area called Bohemian Switzerland, where there's a lot of interesting rock formations, like sandstone rock formations. Narnia was actually shot there partly.
Oh, wow.
And there was this place with two rock pillars, and I thought this would actually be like perfect place for houses in between them. So I shot this. So that's basically the background that you see, and then I just went out to shoot like houses throughout Prague and Stockholm, and just trying to find these old style houses that I thought would.
Those are all. So those houses weren't necessarily together or next to each other originally.
No, they
those
were
are all
not.
just
They
different
were all
houses everywhere.
separated. And I had to so in this case, I actually did use SketchUp in order to draw out like the perspective of the houses to know what perspective I had to shoot them from. Because if you think of each of the houses, some of them would be almost as if they are shot from above, and some of them more from below, kind of like, depending on where they are in this formation. So that was the tricky part of this, to kind of get to those positions in order to shoot that.
Yeah, you had to get all the vanishing points down. That's correct, yeah.
Yeah. I also had to change the shape of the houses slightly because they had to be slightly cone-shaped in order to fit together this way. So they are modified a bit as well.
And so you did that with SketchUp?
I did it with SketchUp, like a simple representation of where those like blocks would be or the houses would be. Yeah. So I basically drew that up because I knew the distance from where I was shooting these pillars of the location in north of Czech Republic. So I kind of knew the distance, I knew the horizon line, and I knew about the that should look like between those two pillars.
And then you integrate that sketch into a layer of Photoshop, and then put the
basically had that as a
yeah.
backplate. Yeah, like a background layer. And then as I was shooting more houses, like I maybe went out to shoot some houses, and then I tried, like, does it look nice? No, the perspective doesn't perfectly match, and then I had to go and reshoot it. So this was a very time-consuming project in that sense. But
no, it's beautiful.
One thing that I'm a little bit curious about: two of the houses on the far end of the arch, you're actually looking underneath the house. How'd you pull that off?
That's the tricky thing. Yeah, so basically I just went down to shoot as low as possible at ground level, and then I had to use the perspective warp tool in Photoshop just to kind of like skew the surfaces even slightly more in order to just fake that perspective a bit more, because that would be impossible.
Nothing's impossible. Okay, maybe one more. I don't know, Alan, Jason, you guys have any image you want to talk about? We have the one that's called Lifetime. It's the clock in the ocean, and then there's
that one. That's the one that gets me. What was the idea behind that? I love the image itself, but what was the thought process behind it? What was the seed of this one?
I guess I have a few topics that I guess I try to come back to a lot, and it's like daring to take a step out into the unknown somehow, or like how we as humans affect the world around us, but also like the passage of time, I guess. And it's just, to me, like the inevitable like movement of time forward, and like this poor guy just standing there and can't really do anything about
okay. That's
how it's kind of moving. So it's a bit sad, I guess, in a way. But it's it was just an idea that I had somehow, that something was going on. Maybe someone is living on the like minute or hour hand of a clock, and somehow like existing there, and it's constantly moving.
Do you draw from any traditional stories or myths or anything that you like to go back to again, or literature for that matter?
I think like children's books are very inspiring to me. So I try to. I read a lot of children's books as a kid, or like rich illustrated ones with a lot of images, and I still try to find inspiration in those. And I mean, also go to exhibitions and try to get impressions everywhere, but especially children's books.
I would imagine your work has a certain amount of appeal, or a lot of appeal, to editorial illustrations. Have you sold your work for these applications?
I haven't. No, not really. I haven't really, but maybe I should.
It's a good idea, huh?
Yeah.
Because I could see it working very, very well. Because these pictures could be used to say a lot of different things depending on how you're presenting them.
I guess so far I've always thought that the images should be like on their own somehow and unrelated to. I mean, I started doing this just for fun. It was not something that I thought would become a profession or something I can make a living of.
Don't you hate when that happens?
Yeah. Well, I kind of lost my hobby. It became my job. But it's okay.
Who tends to buy your prints? Do you have a sense of who it is that's buying them, or?
I mean, it's like a different. I mean, I have a few price ranges. I mean, the smaller ones are cheaper and the bigger ones are more expensive, obviously. So I guess it's more. It's a mix. I mean, I would say usually I sell more prints when I do exhibitions, because then that's when people really see the amount of details, and people don't want to spend like a lot of money on something that they don't really know what it looks like. So. I guess people who are interested in art buy the prints when they see it at an exhibition.
So you do have exhibitions. Usually. That's great.
Yes, there's a new exhibition coming up in Stockholm in just 2 weeks from now. So
okay,
I'm planning that right now.
Go for it. How often do you get back up there? How often do you go to Stockholm or up to Sweden?
I mean, I almost go every month for some reason. It depends a bit, but it can be when it's. I mean, I have my agent there for like commission work as well, and sometimes I have meetings and other things. So, and if I go to Sweden, I usually go to try to visit my family as well. So I try to combine that. So fairly regularly.
One more question, one more image. Maybe we can ask you about the road closed unexpectedly. Maybe talk a little bit about the concept you were getting at and some of the technical process.
Yeah, in this case, I was. This was actually an image that I got in a dream somehow, because it was. I don't remember what the dream was about, but all of a sudden I woke up and it kind of said like the last thing I saw in the dream was that it said like dream closed unexpectedly, like as a program crashed. And I thought like that's quite an interesting, funny thing. And I thought, what else could close unexpectedly? And I thought, what if a road would close unexpectedly? Right. Almost like as we're living in some kind of simulation or something.
Yeah. Well, that one to me is incredible. It really takes the concept to a whole other level.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. It's nice when the dream just gives you like, here you go, an idea.
Yeah. What about demand and supply? I mean, I'm looking at that now. Jason sent it over here. Does that place exist? Please tell me it does somewhere, that rock.
Yes, somewhere. Yeah, okay. Let's say it does.
Where? Okay.
Well, it's. I did get. I had this idea also for a long time in my mind, but it was not until I went to Faroe Islands a couple of years ago that I found these like cliff formations and these very extreme, like natural formations of rock that I thought would be really working well for this image. I mean, obviously, it wasn't like this exact shape on Faroe Islands.
No, that's pretty extreme.
But I found a lot of. But I found a lot of good material I could use for it. So essentially, it's like the bottom part is almost one part, or at least the left part. But there's a bunch of different rocks that came together. But also, it was important with the light coming from the same direction. So I had to shoot a lot of different cliffs and rocks in different.
Yeah.
This was a very time-consuming project as well, but.
Wow.
But it worked out, I guess.
Sure did. When you're location scouting, are you kind of always shooting and taking notes to yourself? Let's just call them photographic notes. And if so, do you end up incorporating them into the image, or do you always kind of want to have the images that you use be something that's been planned out and a little bit more and shot more carefully?
If I go to a location, maybe I don't even bring my camera. Sometimes I just bring the phone and take a few test shots. But I try to be aware already when I go to the location to think about where I want the light to come from and think a lot about these things, the perspective and light and how I can shoot it, how accessible it is to bring props and stuff like that if I need. So there's a lot of parts like that.
I know you mentioned earlier the lens that you try to use, but do you have a focal length that you kind of go back to, or that's most comfortable when you're looking at some of these landscapes?
Yeah, I would say I usually go quite wide. I guess like I would say around 35 millimeter plus minus 10 maybe.
I imagine
it depends. It depends on the idea, because these like perspective illusions, for example, they don't really have a vanishing point. So then you have to go really far back instead. So that's the complete opposite from wide angle, for example.
I would also
it depends on the idea also.
I would imagine that because of the nature of your work, you have to stick to a narrower range of focal lengths, because if you shoot something really wide, something really long, getting them to match won't really work as well. You have to kind of be from the same perspective point of view, right?
Exactly, yeah. I mean, I want the wide I try to shoot wide because I want it to feel like you immerse yourself into the image, like it's really like a window into another world, and I want you to see a lot there. But of course, it's important to like that all the different objects need to be shot then on that focal length, or at least close to it to match. So
right.
Gotcha. So if people want to catch up on your work, and I'm sure they will, your website is?
Yeah, it's Erik with a K, JO.com, or just search for my name.
Okay. All right. And Instagram as well?
Yeah, in my Instagram will be Erik with a K .JOH.
Okay, and again, if you have not seen Erik's work, I highly recommend it. It's each picture is a whole story, a whole journey. It's really
tell us a little bit about the books and where people can get the books and when the next one's coming out.
Yes, so I have my next book coming out, Places Beyond. It contains a bunch of new unpublished photos as well that I haven't had time to get out there yet. And this is getting out in the stores, I think, beginning of December, and it should be available everywhere where you buy books, hopefully. So.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Excellent.
We'll take a look for it.
Good enough.
And we'll put the links on the show notes.
All right.
Yeah.
Erik, thank you so much for joining us. Tusen tack, as they say, right?
Tusen tack. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was great.
That's great. I'm glad you enjoyed your time here with us today. So here's a question. Have you been yourself lately? Do you feel tired, restless? Perhaps your appetite's been on the flat side. Listen, this is no way to go through your life. here's what I suggest. Head on over to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Overcast, or Spotify, and subscribe to the B&H Photography Podcast. It is absolutely free. And you can also find this on the B&H Explorer website, as well as the B&H Photography Podcast Facebook group. We publish a new episode of the show every week, and you can have it delivered directly to your device of choice by simply subscribing to our show. So there you have it. Until further notice, I'm your host, Alan Weitz, and on behalf of John Harris and Jason Tables, thank you so much for tuning in today.